What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is NCIS Season 16, Episode 16, Bears and Cubs. So another good episode. First I'll talk about kind of the bombshell, I guess, that was dropped at the end. Ducky talking about leaving NCIS. Obviously, I'll be sad to see him go if it does end up happening. It's still, I don't know, like, it feels weird to lose a character like in the middle of like half of a season. It's not even like the mid-season finale or the season finale. I feel like this would be a weird last episode for Ducky. So if I had to guess, he'll probably be around maybe for a couple more episodes. They'll have like a great, yeah, fun stuff. Fire alarm just goes off for no reason now. Don't know why. I'll be safe, but I'm gonna pause so you guys don't have to listen to it. Okay, it's done. I'll pause if that happens again. Don't worry. Um, anyways, but I do feel like they're gonna have like a goodbye episode for Ducky before he leaves, because honestly, it has sort of felt like he's not really a part of the show anymore. Like he's gone on a lot of trips. Jimmy is becoming the chief medical examiner, and they've really done a good job of growing Jimmy as a character. And he definitely seems like he's handling the job very well. So it'll be sad to see Ducky go, but the writing's been on the wall for a while that he was. I mean, Jimmy's taken over very well. So I'm not surprised that he's thinking about moving on. Um, I feel like it's going to be a very emotional episode, though. So we'll see how it goes whenever he does decide to leave officially. But as far as this episode is concerned, we see Jimmy's father-in-law comes in, gets him to forge his autopsy and say it definitely was a bear attack. And then there's just this long string of lies that he has to go through before he realizes his mistake, goes to Gibbs about it, and then they manage to track down this guy who set up this whole thing. So as far as the episode, like, it was pretty straightforward. Wasn't too bad. Wasn't anything super interesting though. I did like the dynamic with Jimmy and his father-in-law. It felt like a Jimmy centric episode, and he has become a really good character. So I was happy to see that. I thought they wrote this episode really well too. Like the scene with Jimmy and Gibbs was, I mean, it was good. Gibbs just basically told him, "Look, I need to be able to trust you," and it was not because Gibbs knew that Jimmy is not the type to make stupid mistakes like this often. So he knew he had a good reason for doing it. He wasn't going to super pry into it. He was going to wait for Jimmy to realize his mistake and come to him. And if he didn't, he probably would have gotten pissed. Um, but the fact of the matter is, Gibbs still has to be hard on him in the end. So he just straight up tells him, he's like, "Look, I need to be able to trust you. Don't lie." And yeah, it's very realistic. I think they handled it very well. I was happy with how the story went in this episode. I felt like they did a good job with that. Um, and as far as the case was concerned, nothing too crazy. Jimmy's brother-in-law was involved because he got kidnapped. We haven't seen Jimmy's wife in a long time though, as far as I can remember. So I guess maybe they just can't get the actress on the show very often. Kind of same thing with like Delilah. Like we don't really see her very often. I do wish that they were part of the show more. Like I get the fact you can't really see them at NCIS all the time because, well, you know, this isn't Supergirl where you can just invite your significant other into your place of work and the boss is just completely okay with that. Still pissed about that, and that was like 2 seasons ago. Um, but yeah, like I get the fact that you can't always show them, but I feel like they don't show them enough. We got to see a little bit of Delilah with the one episode centered around McGee, but like we have an episode centered around Jimmy, and while we got to see his father-in-law and his brother-in-law, we don't get to see his wife at all. And I don't know. I just feel like if you're gonna have an episode focused on one of our main characters, I would like to see a little bit more in their personal life as well. Especially when it's something like this, I would like to see his wife say, "Look, Jimmy, you don't have to do that for my dad. He makes some dumb decisions. My brother too. I don't know. I wanted to see her involved in this as well. Like obviously not helping them lie, but just to see her reaction to it and kind of be there to sort of support Jimmy in this. I don't know. I just a little thing that I would felt like would have added to this episode. But all in all, a good episode. It's gotten better ever since the one episode that had Ziva possibly returning. It's gotten better. The episodes have been much better. They've been more interesting. Still some mistakes. Still not getting as many laughs as I'm used to, but I feel like it's stepped up because beginning of the season I wasn't laughing. I wasn't invested. I wasn't really like a part of the show. Now I feel like I'm more invested. Now I feel like they've written some better cases. They've done better jobs with the characters. It's been better so far. This last 4 episodes. So, anyways, with all that being said, though, on to the next episode. See you there. And now, episode 17, Silent Service. Pretty good episode. I really did kind of feel a little intense, which is good because that's what you want to feel in that moment whenever Gibbs pulls the gun on the guy. I mean, okay, nobody's going to die. It's all probably going to work out. But they did build that intensity very, very well, with them finding the guy who was sending the signal to the sub and then also finding out who did it on the sub at the same time. They did a very good job of building that intensity. I honestly was very happy to see that. But yeah, I mean, overall, it was very good. The only... Excuse me, again, I don't know why I'm drinking soda during a review, but I guess I have to drink something. I know if anybody... Why don't you just drink water? I don't know. I like soda. But the only real problem I had with this episode was the captain. And the main reason is because he was acting really foolish for no other reason than we need him to look like a suspect. And same thing with the chief of the boat as well. Like, she was kind of acting a little suspicious for no real reason than we need her to be a suspect. Just so, the one guy that maybe you weren't looking at, which I knew it was him. As soon as they sat down at the table, and the captain was like, yeah, so if you want to get a message back up to the surface, you can talk to him, or I'll give him the message, he'll send it. I'm like, oh, so he's the one sending these messages that you need to dive and all this? He did it. Like, instantly clicked for me. I'm just like, okay, he's the bad guy. Arrest him. But no, I had to go through all of this different stuff, which, I get as far as how the show is concerned, but from the outside perspective, it was a little frustrating how easy it was to figure out. And then also just because I know that he's not, like, the captain is not the bad guy, it makes it more frustrating when he acts like he's the bad guy. Because really, there's no real reason for him not to trust Gibbs and Bishop other than, oh, well, they're not a part of my ship. But who cares? They're NCIS. They're investigating a murder, and just like Bishop said, he certainly doesn't seem concerned that somebody died on his ship. Very valid point. Because if he was the bad guy, well, of course he's not concerned. He's the one that did it, and he wants to go along with his plan and just pretend like, this was not a big deal. So why wasn't he concerned about it? Why wasn't he trying to let them figure it out? Why was he hindering them every chance he got? And it just, I don't know, it seemed weird, and it also seemed weird that he was just so willing to be like, yeah, we need to fire on the Russians because we got orders to do so. Like, I don't know. I get that soldiers follow orders. That's very understandable. But at the same time, you would question something like fire on another country that could potentially start a war. Like, especially with Russia. It's one thing to fire, like, on a smaller country and kill their general because you know that they're not going to be able to fight back. But if it were Russia, that's another thing because Russia's much more equipped to start a war. Iran wasn't. So just a little political there. But that's the thing, though. He's just kind of like, sure, he gives that little speech about all of that stuff, before they decide to do it, but it just seemed like he was so like, yes, these are my orders, I'm going to do it. Instead of thinking, wait a minute, should we contact them to be sure these are our orders? Because this seems a little weird, that we're starting a war with Russia and we seem to be the only sub doing so. I don't know. I would have been a little suspicious, even if I were given orders like that. I would have been like, hang on a minute, this seems a little fishy. Like, it seems like they're just sort of sending us out on a suicide mission almost. So anyway, that was about the only problem with the episode. The rest of it was very well done. I was very happy with how they handled the whole Ducky situation because they were talking about, oh yeah, this is his last day here. but then they kind of turn it on us at the end. Because, I mean, the thing is, unless David McCallum is going to another show, I found it weird that they were kind of like writing off Ducky's character. Not that I'm like, oh yeah, definitely. But, he was kind of in the show for a couple episodes and he wasn't. Then he was, and he wasn't. So I was like, why can't they sort of keep him around for that instead of just saying, all right, he's done with NCIS, bye. And so that's what they did. They made him the NCIS historian. And I don't know, it fits so well. I was actually kind of like really touched. I'm like, that's awesome. Because for a character like Ducky, a historian is perfect. Because the thing is, one of the things I was talking about in the last episode, Jimmy is now. Was that the last episode? It was. Jimmy is now his own doctor. He's a doctor. He's very clearly handling the job well. He's doing everything right. He doesn't need Ducky anymore, and Ducky doesn't really need to be there anymore. And yeah, why not go ahead and retire? He's lived a good life. He's done a good job at NCIS, so it makes sense that he's like, yeah, I don't really need this job anymore, and I want to live my life a little bit. So why not do that? But instead of just completely getting rid of him from NCIS and saying you're never, you're not going to be able to work here, give him a job that is part-time. He can leave and go however he wants, but his knowledge is useful, and he's still a good character too. So I was really glad that they decided to do that with him, and I'm excited to see how they utilize that in episodes going forward. Because of course it means, just like how it has been, we're not going to see him every episode, which makes sense. But I'm excited to see how they're going to do this whole thing with him being the historian. Like, how is he going to contribute his knowledge to the cases nowadays? So yeah, overall, good episode. They're keeping the momentum, which is good. Now on to the next one. See you there. And now episode 18, Mona Lisa. And I tell you what, it's like they were just sitting there. They were like, we're kind of being vague about all the CIA stuff. And I'm just sitting here like, yeah, this season's okay. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna stop there. But seriously, they've hooked me in. Like they've that ending. I'm gonna get to it. First of all, I want to talk about the case in this one though, because it was pretty interesting. Nice little setup. You got Torres waking up and he has no idea what happened. Turns out he was drugged and just trying to figure out why and all of this. The bad guy in this one, a little kind of, I don't know, I guess a little NCIS, like very predictable NCIS, because I'm just thinking to myself, all right, so out of all the people we've met, who would be the most likely to be the NCIS show criminal? The assistant. Sure enough, that's who it was. Because I'm thinking, okay, so it's probably somebody that works there, and they use Torres to get in and make themselves look less suspicious and try to frame him. Also, killing the girl and hiding her under his bike made him look suspicious. So clearly just trying to frame him. But the general or not the general, but the guy who, he's the head of the Coast Guard. I don't even know, lieutenant? Is he a lieutenant? I don't know. My brain, you know how it works. But yeah, he seemed to be the one that they were pushing us, kind of like the captain in the last episode, pushing us to be like, okay, this guy has sharks, he's weird. So, yeah, I'm getting the feeling that he's the bad guy because he's got sharks and he's weird. So it was too obvious, so it had to be the assistant, and sure enough, that's who it turned out to be. But I don't know, I liked the steps to get there. I liked the fact that it was very up in the air, like you have no idea what's going on, but you're slowly figuring it out. But yeah, once we went to the Coast Guard and we met him and his assistant, and like once they went into the room, I'm thinking, yeah, she did it. She's the one that stole the diamonds. So yeah, it was a little predictable at the end, but I liked most of it. Little, I don't know, Nick in this one, kind of back and forth. Like on the one hand, I kind of understand how he feels, because somebody like him to be gotten one over on and roofied and taken advantage of by basically these people who wanted their diamonds back, evil organization. Yeah, that can be a little hard hitting for somebody who generally thinks very highly of himself. So I completely understand most of that, but the problem is that there were a few things in this episode that he did and said that, I don't know, it just didn't really feel like Torres to me. Like, mainly the end, whenever he was talking to Bishop, and like, I know that he was probably hurt by the fact that the team was suspicious of him, but at the same time, a lot of evidence was building up against him, and they weren't really suspicious of him. They were asking the questions because they had to be sure. Like, I don't think any of them thought, yeah, Torres definitely did this. It was just, it doesn't look good. We need to ask these questions to get to the bottom of this. So, I don't know. I thought his reaction at the end was a little over the top. Getting all pissed off at Bishop. Was like, I wouldn't do that. Yeah, maybe not, because Torres is a little hard-headed sometimes. But, I don't know. I felt like that reaction was a little too much and a little too harsh on Ellie. But aside from that, let's talk about the CIA stuff. Because when they did the previously on NCIS and talked about it, I was like, yes, we're getting more. What's going on here? I want to know. Because honestly, it was getting a little frustrating. Because I'm thinking, okay, why is the CIA still looking into Vance? Why, the Secretary of Defense, he's coming back up again. So what's going on here? And I talked about, in that episode with him, I talked about how childish that was, that he went to the CIA. He's like, I hear you've been looking into him. I want everything you got because he did me wrong. Me. Well, as it turns out, he might not be a good guy. So yeah, I really like what they did with the CIA. I like the fact it made sense, ultimately. Because they did ask, after the first 2 months, he's like, yeah, I knew you weren't compromised. He's like, well, why keep looking into me then? Well, it's because this guy is like, we have this huge slush fund in some overseas account that can be tied back to our government. Nobody wants to talk about it. He's like, I can't trust anyone, so he wanted to make sure he could trust NCIS. And so he kept having Vance looked into to be sure, check everything. Make sure everything is good. I do feel a little bad for Vance because I do think he did care about this woman, but also I think he was, once I think he picked up on it. I wish we could have seen that, That's the only frustrating thing about this, is that I wish we could have seen him. When did he start to get suspicious? If we had seen him and her hanging out through most of the season, and then if they had done like a quick little montage at the end showing like the moment that he figured out and how he was manipulating this. Because I loved whenever he walked in with the recording and we looked, the necklace, I'm just like, brilliant. That's fantastic. But I feel like it would have been even more like, holy crap, that was a brilliant setup if we had seen it throughout the season. Instead, it was just, we saw her 1 or 2 episodes. Actually, we only saw her 1 episode at the beginning whenever she first started surveilling him, and then this episode. It was just kind of like out of nowhere. So a little disappointed that we didn't get more build up, but it was still a brilliant reveal. And the fact that now they're going to be looking into the Secretary of Defense, I'm excited about that because, like I said, he was not one of my favorite characters, and he was very, very childish how he reacted at the end of that episode. So yeah, I'm looking forward to see where it's going now. Like, it's got me hooked. I'm excited to see, is the next one going to be about that, or is it going to be kind of in the background for a few more episodes until we get to the end and then bring it back up? Is Ziva going to play into that at all? I don't know, but I'm excited now. And honestly, that's not something I can say that I felt about NCIS for a little bit. Like, honestly, last season they had the one guy that the team helped him get out of prison, but it turns out he was actually the killer. That was exciting and that kept me intrigued. But this season there really hasn't been a whole lot until Ziva, that story, and now they're bringing this back up and they actually made it interesting. Yeah, I'm excited to see how the rest of the season goes. So that's it for these 3 episodes though, so let me know what you think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on these 3 episodes? Let me know, we can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future NCIS reviews, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.